Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Wade Murphy. I hail from what once was a very small town. It's not anymore, in Gorey, County Wexford, in the southeast of Ireland. But along with my wife Elaine, I now live in Adair, County Limerick. I was going to say County Wexford, but a beautiful picture, postcard, rural village, just an hour and a half down the road from here. We're not open tonight if any of you are thinking of going down there. But I suppose growing up and now living in a rural setting, a rural environment, has brought home to me the importance of what is now commonly known as food heritage. And perhaps these are the reasons I've decided to spend my 15 minutes, hopefully a little bit shorter, I'll try to get it done as quick as I can, of Food on the Edge, talking to you about food heritage and how it's as important for the future as it has been for the past. Food heritage, now, that's a term that gets tossed around a lot, isn't it? By supermarkets, by airlines, by food products, by whatever you want. Even us chefs toss it around a bit, you know? Almost until it's lost all its meaning. But it does mean something, and it means something very personal to me, but it should mean something to everybody. If you look up the definition of food heritage, you'll find something along the lines of the sites where people first cultivated plants and domesticated animals, and the earliest locations around the world where people first processed, prepared, sold, and ate foods. That's a fairly rudimentary definition, but it's truer than most of the so-called definitions you'll see out there. As a chef, food heritage means something very personal to me. My work, my life is all about food. My wife Elaine will tell you, even when we're sitting at home, I'm looking up websites, I'm reading magazines, it's 24/7. So how can I create something relevant to the present without understanding my heritage, our past? How can I develop a new dish if that dish is not rooted in this beautiful island of ours, Ireland? As a chef, and more importantly, as an Irish person, my heritage is inescapable. And you hopefully know Ireland has a poignant history with food. A nation that farmed, but at one stage had nothing to eat but a fucking potato. A country that starved when that crop failed. A country that endured conflict, poverty, and had to make do with whatever was available. What you possibly don't know is that that's only a fraction of our story. Now, allow me to digress a little and take a drink of water. But allow me to digress. I belong, as I was introduced, I belong to an organisation called Eurotokes, an organisation I'm very, very proud. And I haven't finished yet. I'm still there till February. So, but one thing that we do every year is we organise a competition for young chefs, and you heard the great Elena Arzak speak earlier on, who we were lucky enough to have as a guest judge. You heard Phil Howard, who was a guest judge, and this year we have Claire Smith. So you can see the importance of the competition. But it's a grueling competition. I wouldn't do it. If I was under 26, I don't think I'd be able to do it. And just last week, I got to interview 30 of Ireland's young chefs. We interviewed them for half an hour, and to me, it was really, really encouraging to see what they knew about Irish food, Irish heritage. The theme this year was the origins of contemporary Irish cooking. They presented their ideas, and for an old chef like me, it was really encouraging to see what they knew about things like traditional farmhouse goose products to curing meats. Curing meats, incidentally, is a prominent Irish tradition. Did you know, here's a fact, that in the 1920s, 70% of the Irish households, everybody actually had a pig. And before it was cool and trendy, like Egypts like me, to do head to tail or nose to tail cooking, they were doing it, but they weren't doing it because it was cool and trendy, or they thought the Michelin inspector was coming in tomorrow, so let's use everything, or whatever. They did it out of necessity. They salted, they cured, and they preserved just to make things last. Hopefully, we're getting back to that side of things. As chefs, we have a responsibility to use the whole animal. We have a responsibility to try cut down on food waste. One of my favorite things that was mentioned by the young applicants was a thing called the Fulucht Fia. Any of you know what that is? Hopefully you do. For those of you who don't or haven't heard of this, it's in fact a Bronze Age cooking technique where the meat was wrapped in things like hay or whatever, then cooked in a dugout pit where water was heated with stones that were heated on the fire. Everything was compact. See, even back then, we were doing sous vide without even knowing it. You know, we were well ahead of our time. Of course, being Ireland, you will always hear about the famine and post-famine years where poor Irish families scrimped and foraged, pickled and preserved. Again, not out of trying to be trendy, but out of necessity. What a lot of people don't know, that from prehistoric times in Ireland, milk and dairy products were the most important food production happening here. Not meat and potatoes like we're all known for now, you know. That in the 14th century, during the years of the plague and decline, monastic communities in Ireland were preserving cheese-making traditions that are alive and well throughout Europe now. Probably because we didn't get the plague. Usually we get everything, but how we didn't get the plague, I don't know. But do you know that in 12th century Ireland, it was one of the richest territories in Europe for game and fowl. So much so that an English king at the time, Henry II, came specifically to Ireland for crane, which was in season then, and was treated to roast crane and some other inventive preparations you probably won't see today. He was entertained by the well-heeled chieftains of the time. Maybe it was our fuck-up that we were showing off our wares to a budding English empire at the time. Ireland has always had a tradition of salting and curing meats, as I mentioned before. Ireland became a specialist producer of salt beef, which was exported all over the world. We've produced sausages back in the 17th century, cow and sheep puddings. I'm in Galway, I'm not even going to try pronounce them in Irish. You know, so even back then, we were doing charcuterie before it was even cool and trendy to do it, you know. Away from the cooking side of things, what about the reputation of the great Irish hotels? I'll quote from a quaint text, Ireland within the Union, 1800 to 1921. See, that's what we get for showing off our game. Some of you might get it, some of you don't. That's what we got by the great scholar Desmond Keane. By the mid-century, the best hotels in Dublin, that of Mr. Gresham and the Shelbourne especially, were considered equal of any of the hotels around the world. A golden age, I must add, that didn't last indefinitely after this review. I don't blame anybody for not knowing any of this. I just feel sorry, and it saddens me when people don't know our great history. Right now, Ireland has reached what you might call a tipping point in terms of food and culinary art. It's arrived after decades of passion and drive, which started with several individuals, but just to name a few, the likes of Myrtle Allen and the late, great Jerry Galvin, who I'm sure would be all over the place here today if that was... I'm still fucking nervous. I have to say, as a chef who's been working for more decades than I care to admit, I'm not immune to what's been happening on the Irish cooking scene. Like I said earlier, I opened with my wife Elaine our own restaurant 2.5 years ago. And like the young chefs who we interviewed last week, I too have been seeking something like them, and that's my own culinary style. I think about my time as a chef in America. I've been very lucky to work all over the world and work with some great people. A brilliant time, I might add. I loved working in America, but my whole time there, all I kept thinking about was the food at home. And it made me miss the food at home. It made me miss what we do. You know, growing up in Wexford, where somebody once said to me, there's only two things come from Wexford, knackers and strawberries, and you're no fucking strawberry. But going back to where the strawberries came into season every summer, you know, that taste can't be reproduced. It can't be reproduced in a greenhouse. You know, I often made myself sick eating more than I picked. I nearly owed the guy who had the strawberry farm money when I was finished. But to me, they're not a product of mass production. They were a seasonal gift that we look forward to, and on several, as I said, on several occasions made ourselves sick from. I could stand here citing instances of my joy for various seasonal produce all day, but just like any of you can, what I can do that you mightn't expect is that I can trace that right back, this joy right back to Celtic folklore. You talk about the salmon and knowledge. We talk about hunting wild boar and deer from the stories of Cú Chulainn and beyond. As I reach a certain point in my career, and like everyone else, lucky enough to be cooking professionally in Ireland today, I am part of a generation of Irish chefs who can for the first time see that we are very close to discovering that we, as a country, have a unique culinary style, a culinary signature of our own. What my understanding of food heritage tells me is that we as a small island nation have been uniquely privileged with beautiful produce from our beautiful land, which means so much to us as Irish people. And looking through history for traces of this heritage, the outstanding common denominator is a profound respect and love for that produce. We are blessed, we are humbled by it. That humility and that respect is the foundation of contemporary Irish cooking. Food heritage is not a slogan, not a hashtag that can be attached to an idea or a product. It's a foundation on which you as chefs, we as people build something lasting and genuine. Because when you cook, it's not just your impression or your interpretation of heritage. It's a memory. It's not just for you. It's for the next generation of chefs that you mentor in your kitchen and for the customers you serve. Because we're not only chefs, but in my opinion, we are the custodians of Irish food heritage. In conclusion, I truly believe that in order to move forward into the future, on whatever culinary journey that may take us, it's fundamental to remember where we came from and what happened in our past. From and through our past, we can only build a solid base for the future. Without that base, the pie will crumble to shit. And that's just my thoughts. Thank you very much.